Welcome to Truth and Justice with Vivian King, and I am your host, Vivian King. I have a great show planned for you tonight, so feel free to call in and give us your comments. The call-in number will be flashing all night long at 713-807-1794. Now, we have in the studio two guests tonight. We have Israel Saldana, and I might not be pronouncing his name correctly. He's been accused of a crime that he said he did not commit. He's currently going to court for it. I also have a great lawyer and good friend of mine in the studio, Juanita Jackson-Barner, who will also be answering your questions tonight. So let's jump right in with Israel. So Israel, tell us what happened and where you were and what's going on with you right now.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm being charged for possession of controlled substance less than 1 gram. And it started at a club, and pretty much while I was being detained by an officer, he questioned me like most officers do. You know, have you ever been to jail? You have any tickets? Stuff like that. And, you know, he started nitpicking at certain things, you know, that I really want to discuss right now. But he searched me with excessive force, didn't find anything. I told him he was wasting his time. And later on, about 15 minutes later, after being searched, I seen Cynthia, who I was with at the club, and they exchanged conversation and everything. I was pretty much hysterical because the officer kind of threw me off the, you know, and so I really wasn't listening. And next thing you know, I told her to leave because I was worried about her safety. I knew that the officer had intentions on taking me to jail. So I just told her, you know, just go home, and she tried to get the key because my key was hanging out of my pocket. All my stuff was thrown on the floor. He obviously, you know, just tried to have something on me that, you know. But after that, she left. I was there, and I was handcuffed to a rail the whole time. And while he stood behind me, I noticed at the peripheral, I had to look. I saw the officer who was detaining me in possession of a bag, a crisp, clear plastic bag, and it had approximately 40 to 50 blue pills. And as I looked, I couldn't believe it. And that's when he taunted me with it and said, you know, I don't know if I should say what he said.
Don't use real cuss words.
Okay, he said, I'm going to put this
but you can
on
say
you. You know,
just F or P, but don't say the word.
He said, I'm going to put this S on you. And that's when I told him, out of my mind, I'd like to see you try MF. And he kept his distance from me. He never came close to me after that. And I noticed another officer driving up, and they exchanged talk away from me where I couldn't really hear. I just overheard an officer saying, I'm going to take him for the 2. So I didn't have an idea what he was talking about, but whenever I got up to the car, I asked him, I said, sir, what are you taking me in for? And that's when he replied, tickets. So I got in, you know, and I got in the car, drove off. We got to Central City Jail, and that's when I was like, I'm not doing tickets because, you know, Macau is where you go to do tickets. And
Did you have tickets?
I had tickets. You know, I had a couple of tickets. That's the whole thing started on, you know, him instigating and asking me questions about, you know, my priors and if I had tickets or warrants, and I answered honestly about everything. You know, I never confronted him aggressively or anything. His whole tactic was that I be honest. You know.
Let me ask you this, Israel. Was he alone?
He wasn't alone, but he was standing alone. You see,
Can you hold your thought for just a minute?
Yes, ma'am.
Caller, you're on. Caller, you're on.
Yes. Hello?
Yeah, turn your volume down so you won't echo. And nice. I'm glad you called. Give me your comments, please.
Well, I'm listening to Brother Israel right here, and it's really not pertaining to his situation with the police. I had a situation pertaining to the law and how it affects employment. I recently worked for a company. They promised me a certain hourly wage, and upon getting paid, the money wasn't what they told me. And I want to know what's my legal, you know, action from that.
Okay. What I would suggest you do is file a complaint with the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity agency. And I would just Google them, and I would start with, you know, the government agency, EEOC. That's what I would do. Okay?
Thank you.
And what do you think about what's happening with Brother Israel?
Well, it happens a lot. Normally, like you said, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I realize he is too. You know, Houston's a rough city right now. As far as
That's true. That's a good way of putting it. Houston's a rough city. Thanks for calling, and please watch us every Wednesday from 6:30 to 7:30. Thank you for calling, and good luck with your situation, sweetheart. All right, keep talking.
I forgot.
You forgot where you were? Oh, you were saying he was kind of standing alone.
Oh, he was standing alone. There were other officers around, but they were kind of conducting their own business.
Did it look like they worked for did he work for?
No, he was in uniform. He was an officer in uniform, HPD officer in uniform. And
but clubs hire people in uniform to be in uniform.
Yes.
Usually they work in pairs of two outside.
There was other officers out in the back, but they weren't by him. You know, they were out. The parking lot is not that vast, but there was a lot of people back there.
So was he working the club? That was the issue.
Yeah, he was working a second job at the club.
Second job.
You know, and that's exactly where he was at. And the bouncer, he kicked me out because I had a pair of glasses on my head, a pair of glasses that I had on my head when I went in and paid. And if I would have known, I couldn't have glasses on, not on my face, but on my head. If I would have known, I would have left them in the car, you know. But obviously, that was their intention. They'll have you go into the club, whatever way, and then while you're there, they're controlling the population. They'll say, hey, we'll weed you out, and you know, you have a shirt that we don't like or approve, or that's their tactic. Their tactic is to have you, you know, either leave or stay, but you know you can't leave because
How much does it cost to get in?
It costed $15, $10 for me and $5 for my girlfriend.
Okay, we're going to take one more call, and then I'm going to let Attorney Barner talk. Caller, you're on. Thanks for calling.
Yes, thank you, Ms. King, for taking my call. I know this might not be on the subject or anything, but I want to elaborate on something that happened this week. The 12-year-old girl, and I want your answers and things about this. The 12-year-old girl that killed her dad, what they said that it was abuse, and she killed him in his sleep when he wasn't abusing her. Don't you think, and I've seen some other cases like this, that this young lady could have gone and got help or talked to someone in the family, and 12 years old, killing a person, you know, basically it's going to be on her mind. I feel like this, too, also, Attorney King, that this girl should have had some type of disciplinary measures taken towards her, because basically I can't see where you can take a person's life the way she did and nothing happened. So I'll hang up, and I'd like for you to elaborate on that, please.
Thank you, Legend. I know I recognize your voice. Thanks for supporting me. This is one of my friends, the fishing legend. I recognize that distinctive radio TV voice.
Right,
But anyway, the lawyer that tried that case is my office mate, Wendy Akins-Pastorini, and she's actually going to be on next Wednesday to tell about that case. So please call back next Wednesday. You would have to know a lot about the case to know the mindset of the 12-year-old girl. She's 15 now. It's been pending for 3 years. She hasn't been in any other trouble. There was a lot of sexual and physical abuse and immaturity and no one to reach out to because let me just tell you this. It was no one to reach out to because she didn't live with her biological mother at the time. She lived with her father and her stepmother, and the biological mother was not, she didn't feel comfortable or know how to reach out at the time. We're not saying she made the right choice in the way she handled it. That's why she was in the juvenile system, and they were finding her not guilty like you do for adults. It was whether she had engaged in delinquent conduct. They did find that she engaged in delinquent conduct. So that's the equivalent of guilty. But then they had two other prongs to answer. Okay, so first, did she or did she not engage in delinquent conduct? So they could have said, no, she did not engage in delinquent conduct, which would have been the equivalent of a not guilty in the adult system. They didn't say that. They said she did engage in delinquent conduct. Then they had two other special issues to answer. One, did she act because she was physically abused and she was defending herself? And you have to look at that from the mind of the person who's the defendant. So they said no to the sexual abuse. They didn't feel that she had been sexually abused, but they did find yes to the physical abuse because there was all kind of evidence that came up in the trial of physical abuse and bruises when she went to school and different issues like that. So you have to look at it from the standpoint of the person who was abused, not from your standpoint or the dad's standpoint, but from the standpoint of the person who did it. So that, I'm just going to tell you, that's what the result was. Yes, she's delinquent, but she did defend herself when you look at it from the eyes of a 12-year-old. So I'm not saying it's right, and I do believe that she is receiving counseling. And obviously that's a very serious thing to do. So thank you for your call. And what do you think about Israel's situation? Have you heard anything yet?
Well, I just got back in town, and I've been listening to it.
Okay.
And I'm going to hang up the phone, listen to you, and I will elaborate on that.
Next week?
Yes.
Thank you, sweetheart. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
All right, Attorney Barner, let me get your opinion on what's going on. You said you've had experience with this club. You've had a lot of cases in this at this club, so tell us about your experiences.
I've had at least 4 cases where people have been at that club that have been charged with criminal trespass. And the MO of what Israel is saying is very common. And in all the cases, the people were already in the club for whatever reason. Anything, they give their bouncers and their off-duty cops carte blanche. They can make any decisions that they want as to who is in and who is out. And it is the type of club that they want a special kind of people in. And it does happen that everybody that I have represented that have been charged happen to be minorities. I'm not going to say that there aren't other people that end up in trouble there, but ultimately asked to leave for little relatively minor things.
Can you remember what any of your clients?
Yes, one specifically, one young lady specifically, someone at the club had too much to drink and had thrown up. It was not her. And one of the bouncers said, "It was you," and she's like, "No, it's not me." And the cop, the bouncer thought it was her. The cop, when she's trying to say, "It's not me, look, this is where it was," the cop says, "You and your smart mouth, you need to get out of here." So she's out, just like a lot of people in the parking lot. All her friends are inside. She didn't even have a ride home. And this young lady was 23 years old. It's late at night, and she's trying to explain to the cop, "My friends are inside. What am I supposed to do?" She didn't know what she was supposed to do. She didn't have keys. She didn't have anything. One of her friends even had her purse. So she had no way. And so she's standing there on the sidewalk, kind of just trying to figure out what to do, and they continue to tell her to leave. And she did kind of walk away at first, but then as soon as you kind of walk back to ask, she said she walked back to ask a question, can she make a phone call? And they immediately said she was trespassing and took her into custody.
Wow.
That's exactly what happened with me.
And luckily I was able to get her case dismissed because we ended up having some finding witnesses to the behavior of the cop. So when Israel gives a story that he had the glasses on and all of a sudden now you had them on when you were before, I believe him. That seems to be the MO of this club.
When I went to probable cause, they mentioned that I was causing a disturbance in the club.
That's exactly what they said.
Completely lied, to the judge. Well, I didn't cause no disturbance, I had a pair of glasses on my head. I explained to the bouncer, can I at least get my girlfriend? Because I was ready to leave whenever they kicked me out. I was looking for Cynthia after coming from the restroom, and it's pretty small, but you can get lost in there with a lot of people. And that's initially what happened right then and there. And I tried to explain to him, "Sir, to get the H out of here," and I did. I'm not.
So basically, you separated from your date. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
You walk in with sunglasses.
I gave her my money. I had the keys. I drove. I explained to the officer. I said, "Sir, my girlfriend's in there. I've just been kicked out for having a pair of glasses on my head." Honest to God truth, straight up to him. And I guess he's not used to having somebody be honest to him, but that's the thing you're taught. You're taught to be honest to the police. And I was honest with him. I told him, "Sir, my girlfriend's in there, and we've been drinking. I got kicked out for having a pair of glasses on my head. I have the car, and I can't just leave her here. I mean, I need somebody to assist me so that I can get her so we can leave." that's it. And when I told him about him assisting me, that's when he just lost his mind, you know, like, get the H out of here. So I left. He's trying to write out all kinds of other stuff,
Right.
you know.
Now he said you're trespassing. Well, what I find the most egregious about it is that you walked in with the sunglasses on top of your head.
Yes, ma'am.
You paid $25 to get in.
$15.
Well, okay, $15 to get in for you and your girlfriend.
together.
And then when it gets crowded,
exactly.
they don't want you in there. They start looking at people to identify to get out. They kick you out without her. And now, if you try to go back in, you're trespassing.
And on trespassing, the people that own the building, like the club, you know, the people that are all involved, that watch the video cameras and have everything, you know, and they don't even have to be at court. You know, the complainant is coming from the authority that's greater, you know, which is the police officers that have that right to say you can leave or you can stay. The club don't need to be there. You know?
Hold on, let's take another call. Caller, turn your volume down, and we appreciate you calling. You have a comment?
Yes, ma'am. I just called to tell you thank you for your show.
Oh,
A lot
thank you.
of injustice going on in America, and it's just, I'm just proud of you for doing something, because there's a lot of people that's just doing nothing. I wanted to commend you on that, and also I wanted to make a comment.
That's so sweet of you to say. What's your name?
My name is Roderick Harvey.
Okay, I don't know you. Thank you for saying that. This is considered my community service. I'm trying to educate the Harris County public about what goes on in our criminal courthouse. I want to seek the truth, and I want us to talk about it and get involved in the system, participate as jurors, know who your judges are that you vote for, and just talk about real cases and real people and what we go through. So thank you. What's your comment?
I'd like to make a comment about the situation at the club. Was it the downtown club that y'all were talking about? I think y'all were covering.
Can I say the name of the club?
Yeah.
It's the Roxy.
It's a Galleria club.
It's in the Galleria on Hidalgo. Is what Attorney Barner
West
told
Alabama.
me. It's on West Alabama?
Yeah.
Okay, it's on Roxy behind the Galleria.
Okay, I'm not too familiar with that area.
Okay, well, you can talk about the club you know about. You want to make a comment about a club you go to?
I choose not to go out, you know.
Yeah.
I just want to say, you know, when people need to go out, they need to be aware of the timing that they're out, and you don't have a say-so when it comes to authority. You have no win. You know, the only thing you're going to get is a trip downtown. And the officer is going to tell you, I'm just here to take you in. You need to answer to the judge. So we need to be aware of our demeanor, of our conduct around authority. I think, you know, sometimes the authority is maybe, you know, wrongly accused of some things because people bring things upon themselves.
Right. And one of the things that troubles me, Mr. Harvey, though, is if a club is already going to have people who, the club makes money for people drinking, okay? So you're going to have people who are consuming drinks. And so as long as a person is not cussing someone out or being belligerent or starting a fight, you know, there has to be a balance. So there need to be police officers who understand that as long as people are following the rules, reasonable rules, like who cares about sunglasses on top of somebody's head? And Attorney Barner is here to kind of verify that she's had 4 cases like that they've done the same thing. They just put them out, put the wrong person out, and that's the problem. You have an open facility that you want people to come to make money, because if you're in the club business, it's all about how much liquor you sell. And then, so you're going to get people liquored up.
Right.
So people are going to act a little differently than they walked in.
Right.
So you would think that they would want officers. Now, if that club didn't have a lot of business and it wasn't in the Galleria area, they would tolerate a lot of things. But it's because they have an overflow of people, and probably once they make their door money, they're good with what happens in there. So I appreciate you calling. You have another comment?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to say that, you know, when people are out, you know, it's a lot of corrupt people in general. Now, you think about the corrupt policemen. You have to be aware that, I mean, you're around corruption, you know, and sometimes these officers probably don't know how to do their job. They're just as afraid as you are. Or maybe they're around their partners. You know, people go to talking and this and that in the locker room about how you got to look like this. And, you know, it's a macho type thing when around men. You know, people just need to be aware of, you know, that surroundings. You got the party. You know, you have no win in this situation. Let's just be quiet. Let's not try to be right. You have no right in authority.
That's true.
You have no right.
That's true.
Even when you're right, you're wrong.
Even when you're right, you don't have any right. You're right. Thank you for your call, Mr. Harvey. And keep watching us every Wednesday from 6:30 to 7:30. God bless you, sweetheart. You have anything you want to say about
Well,
that?
I think a key thing that he talked about, and we deal with this all the time, and I wasn't there, but the little bit that you did tell me was that you questioned and you were probably a little upset. And I'm not saying that you didn't have a right to be, but that seems to be an overlying theme with what we deal with all the time with clients, that we have to tell clients all the time, if you kept your mouth shut, you wouldn't have been arrested. If you had kept your mouth shut, because unfortunately, he's right. Police officers have this machismo that they have, that they think you can't question them, you can't, it's wrong, but in the end, they're the ones that have authority that can, as they say, we always say, what is it, the saying, you might beat the case, but you can't beat the ride.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's the bottom line, and they know that. They know this person is questioning me, bucking at the system,
I never
and I'm
questioned
going to
him.
let him know, because I'm going to take him down for a ride.
That's the thing. I never questioned the officer. You see, the officer, if I got kicked out, this is where the tactic comes in. They find you in the club, like you said, and they target you. If you originally just get kicked out, then why didn't they just kick me out and leave it at that? They took me out and directly handed me over to a police officer.
Right.
That's where it begins. You see, regardless if you tell the truth, like the gentleman said, or if you act out, you know, one way or the other, they have that hold over you.
So you're saying once they put you out, they took you straight and started handling you rough and started and put you off the car?
No.
When they,
See,
what do you mean when they handed you to another police officer?
As soon as they kicked me out, the bouncer grabbed me by the arm and took me out to the officer who was standing in the back, which was the one who was detaining me. Upon talking to him, telling him why I got kicked out and if I needed his assistance, you know, if he could help me, he told me to get the H out of there. So I did. I got the H out of there. You know, I left, and that's when I went around to the front to talk to somebody with more sense. And
because what you need to do, the problem with this club situation is that, just like in Attorney Barner's case and in your case, is you got to get with your party. So I think what's frustrating me about them is if they're going to put you out, they should say, is anyone with you?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you need to get your purse? Can you stand here right here while I go, or escort you back into the club and say, okay,
where's she at?
Where's she at? You know, like just stay with you. The bouncer stays with you, walks you, finds you, and say, look, let's leave together. Or in Attorney Barner's case, if the little girl got kicked out for throwing up, even though she's the wrong girl, somebody should have escorted her back in and said, look, she's leaving. Does someone want to leave with her to take her? Can y'all give her her purse or her property? They ought to have at least that common courtesy.
But, and you're right, but the bottom line is there's some good cops out there that would do something like that. For the most part, from the stories that I've heard, from your experience, from the experiences of that one client, and I have another one that's similar story, that whoever there is working there does not have that common courtesy. And it escalates to something else. Because you add a mix of being wrongfully accused,
Exactly.
you add the mix of I probably had a few drinks, and you add the mix a rude police officer. That is trouble right there waiting to happen.
Yes, ma'am.
And unfortunately, the person that's not the cop is the one that's got to pay for it.
Yes, ma'am.
Hold on, y'all. Hey, you have something on your mind?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What I would like to say is I think one of the bigger issues is that he's saying an officer planted drugs on him. Is that right?
No. No, he didn't plan drugs.
He didn't plan it. He just...
He's alleging that I had drugs.
He's just alleging he had it. Israel's saying, I never had drugs. I got put out for the sunglasses. I saw an officer with some drugs, and later he's taking me because Israel had outstanding traffic warrants, okay? So he thought he's going down for outstanding traffic warrants, and when he gets down there, all of a sudden he finds out he's being booked for, he didn't go to Makawa where he expected to go for traffic warrants. He ends up going down to the city police where he's being transferred to the county for the possession of pills. So he's having to start thinking now, this must be those pills, because they just give him 2 or 3 pills. They say it's like 2 or 3 pills, right?
What they're charging me for is less than 1 gram. But when I initially went in, I thought that I was being charged for the whole bag that I witnessed, because the officer who took me in, Braddock, told me possessing a controlled substance. He didn't tell me less than 1 gram, you know? So when I went in, I didn't have bright expectations of getting out, you know, or bonding out on a $5,000 bond that I had.
Yeah, he
you know?
expected that he was going to give him the whole bag, but he gave him a few. But go ahead, caller. What's your question?
Well, I guess my question is, why do you, I mean, it sounds so odd that officers would do that. Like, what are some things, you know, maybe you and Attorney Barner can think of why an officer would do things like that. Like, it sounds so egregious, but why do officers do things like that? Like, why would they plant pills, or why would they go that far? I think that needs to be explained.
I'm going to let Israel say, why do you think, what happened with you? Oh, yeah, okay, what's your idea?
I have an idea why. You see, as small as a picture as it may seem, it's on a bigger scale. You see, they're not doing this to just me, they're doing this to other people. It's a bigger scheme going on. And ultimately, like she said, it's a club of youth. You know, it's not a club of 30, 40-year-old people. These guys, they're 18, 19, 21 years old, barely starting their life. And they encounter these crooked individuals, these officers. You don't have to just worry, as the other individual said, you have people outside that you gotta say, hey, watch out for bad people. You have to watch out for bad cops, you know. And when they do this, it's all about money, you know. A little felony, it's the smallest felony in the world, you know, possession of controlled substance less than 1 gram. It sounds believable, you understand, but the verdict is beyond belief, you know. That's the truth.
I always want to believe in the police, and I don't want to think that they would accuse you of something you didn't do. But in this business, I have seen it. We've been talking to Israel for about an hour before we got on air, and he's just so believable. He's here with his girlfriend, his family, his children are out here in the green room. He has a job. He got in trouble when he was younger. He's had a lot of misdemeanors, and we're going to talk a little bit more about his first case in which he was wrongfully accused. He's just had some bad experiences.
Yeah, of course.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if these are pills that the police officers got off other people that night.
Well,
I mean, I don't think that they would just take them out of their property room and say it belongs to somebody. I don't know, because I'm sure there's a lot of drugs going on, because Juanita Barner has had a lot of experience at this club, and she said it's a young crowd.
It's a younger crowd. And I'm like most people. You don't want to believe that cops would charge him for something that he never had, but we've been doing this a long time. You don't want to believe, you know, when we first started, and the average person doesn't believe that cops lie. We hear it on the stand every day. We see police reports that are just unbelievable, that are sometimes just fiction. So you don't want to believe it, but it is possible.
And it does happen. I mean,
it happens every day.
And you know, especially when you've done a lot of cases like I have, especially when I used to do a lot of court appointments, you just get frustrated when you know that every police report reads the same.
Right.
They all read the same. And so you know that all, as big as Houston is, and all the drug cases, they can't read the same. And so that's when you start being disillusioned about the police telling you, you think it's a drop-down menu and it's multiple choice. Because, in fact, I had a police officer tell me that one time, that the probable cause is a drop-down menu. So you worry because they all read the same and people don't act the same. And you worry about that. I just don't think that even if Israel was put out for sunglasses, let's say, for example, the drugs were his, why would they have a right to go in his pocket? Why would they, I mean, pills are little. So, I mean, why would they have a right to even bother him like that? Why wasn't he free to be left alone?
That's where it starts, you know, because when you're being accused of having something you didn't have, like you said, you're not being, you know, accused of doing something you didn't do or saying something you didn't say, but they have to say that you did stuff you didn't say and do things you didn't do in order to accuse you of having something you didn't have.
Exactly.
You know?
He's right about that. What people don't understand and what it is that we do is that if ultimately they want to get you down for a felony, the cops have got to justify that, even if you were guilty. Let me say this much.
Exactly.
What we deal with a lot is that we do have clients that may have the drugs on them. Where we deal with the lying officers is that they find the drugs in illegal or improper means, and the lies happen because in the cop's mind, this guy's guilty, and I know I need to say it this way so that he can be held responsible for this.
Whatever he needs
to do.
But
the reality is, if you because he knew if he told the truth,
he didn't have a right to go search that guy's car.
Search the car. He didn't have a right to. You know, one of my bigger cases, my client was facing 25 to life, and the bottom line is, and this is part of the reason that we do what we do, he did have the drugs in his car, but the cop got to it was, 1, a questionable traffic stop, 2, lied, said my client consented, and then searched the car. And it was nothing, and then he had to lie. He lied and said my client was nervous and gave him this, and my client. Luckily, it was a trooper, and we had videotape that disputed it. And people say, well, how do you feel about that? I said, it's because it ends up being in this cop's record. He had had commendations for as many searches and seizures that he had done. So he had a history of illegally searching people on the stretch of highway between here and New Orleans. That was his MO. And so the thought is, how many people did he illegally search? And yes, they may have not had anything in the car and he let them go. They didn't complain because they didn't get arrested, but you have to, he violated people's rights consistently over and over again.
And let me
had
get a
to
comment.
lie to get to the end result.
Yes, ma'am. Let me, what do you think about that, caller? You're a lawyer.
Well, I think that I appreciate Israel for coming on the show and talking about it because it sounds unbelievable when you say a police would do something like that. And I'm happy that the public is getting to hear about these things. And Ms. Barner is telling her story and you're telling your stories because people just don't believe that this stuff happens because we're in the criminal justice center. We see it, but it needs to be heard about because it sounds like somebody's lying when they say the police will go that far. But they have quotas and they have, you know, maybe it's, you know, other quotas, promotions, other things to think about in doing these things. So I appreciate Brother Israel for coming on and telling his story.
I appreciate Brother Israel for doing that too because, like you said, we want people to be informed. We want people to know. We don't want people to be negative about the system, but we want people to know that you, as a juror and as a citizen, can follow the evidence wherever it leads. You know, if a juror, if someone's watching this and you end up being a juror on Israel's case, watch it. You can be fair and impartial. Be fair and impartial. But we as minorities need to be more involved in the criminal justice system. So fair and impartial, it might lead you to believe that he's guilty, then do that. File him guilty. Or it might lead you to believe that he's not guilty. Then find him not guilty, but you can go where the evidence leads you. But people like Israel need to know that we as citizens will come down to that courthouse and do what's right. He shouldn't be afraid. As we go on in this broadcast, we're going to tell you about an experience Israel had when he was only 17, where he was falsely accused, went to trial, and the type of people that came down to jury duty were not fair and impartial people. They already had their minds made up. They didn't look like Israel, and he got a conviction for something he didn't do, and it almost ruined his life. And he's still very bitter about it, but he has a good support system, a good girlfriend, and he's here now, and he's working with Cornell X and other people. I'm on his side now that he has met me, and he knows that I believe in fighting to the end, and he knows that I'm going to associate him with lawyers that do the same thing. Maybe you.
Well, thank you, Ms. King.
Okay. All right, Ms. Barks.
For telling your story.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. All right. So,
can I say something?
Yeah.
I'm not bitter about the first one.
You
know,
not?
I'm bitter about this one. You know what I'm saying? I'm really bitter about this one. Once is like, you know, it's not good, but the second time it becomes a pattern. When it's happened to me, I realize that this has happened to other people more than once.
And how old are you, Israel?
I'm 30 years of age.
Israel, you're 30 years old. You know this has happened before. And let me tell you what you're facing. And you know this, but I want my callers to know, I mean, my viewers to know this. It's your word against the police officer. And when those police officers put you in the, when they ran you that night, they knew you had a record.
Yes, ma'am.
And so once they know you have a record, what do they know, public? They know that it's their word against an ex-con's word. And that's the way they're looking at it. But I hope the public realizes that people can change, they can do better, and they have the right to the benefit of the doubt on each and every case, because police officers sometimes arrest people who are easier to convict. But Israel's going to fight this time. He's not going to lay down. I'm going to let Israel tell you a little bit about his first case when he was 17, because it's the one that started his life.
This is the one that started it.
It's the one that started his life. And what makes him not afraid to tell his story.
Exactly.
Let's take a call before you let you do that. We're seeking the truth tonight. What do you want to talk about?
Yes, ma'am. I've been listening to your topic, and I have also been wrongly accused by police officers in the past. And what Attorney Barner was speaking of also had happened to me when I was in college. My automobile was wrongly investigated on a traffic stop. And I did have a situation where they tried to plant 3 marijuana cigarettes. It wasn't anything as far as distribution, but since I didn't...
So it's possession? Possession of marijuana?
Yes, ma'am, correct. And so I had people that knew me ever since I was growing up, my coaches in college as well, that all knew that I had never smoked marijuana. I wasn't a drug user. I wasn't even a drinker. So
did your lawyer tell you to go immediately and take a drug test so that you could
I sure
prove?
did. We not only took a drug test, we went and had a hair follicle examination.
All right, fight for yourself. I like it.
And so when we brought that all in front of the court, showing this and explaining what happened, you know, the judge immediately threw it out. And the officer that also had stopped me had a past of stopping people illegally. It happened in Orange, Texas.
Yes,
But
this is the same area. That stretch, it wasn't Orange, Texas. It was still in Harris County, but it was on that stretch of I-10. And that's a very common occurrence, that people don't understand and know their rights. But it's a catch-22.
Yes, and so when that happened to me, that just it just showed me, you know, that things can happen to people and people can be wrongly accused. Ever since that day, I've had a total opposite opinion on police officers. So I do, you know, am not the person that knows that just because the officer says it is right.
And I'm glad you know that, but what frustrates us as criminal defense lawyers is that when we go down to that court, I know if I represent Israel, he's Hispanic, I'm going to want some Hispanic people on the jury. And if Israel was black, I'm going to want some black people on the jury. But prosecutors know that they're going to ask you, do you not want to stand in judgment because of your religion? And, you know, they know how to ask questions to get you off the jury. But as citizens, we need to all participate. We want the right people to be convicted and go to jail. And if the person's not guilty, we want them to be found not guilty. And we need jurors and citizens who care enough to sacrifice their time and give to their community. This show is my community service to you. So you could certainly come to and I'm paying for it, so you could certainly come to your community and participate in society. So if someone didn't do it, they don't sit in jail for 20 years until some new DNA kits come out. You know, you have people that can be fair and impartial and follow the way it goes. But, you know, luckily, caller, you had the resources to go take a hair follicle test. You don't know how many clients are indigent. I mean, really poor, have no support system.
That's what happened. That's what happened for me the first time.
And when we tell you about Israel's story, that's what happened when he was 17. Some people can't even afford to go take a $50 drug test. And that's why they have
court. Who was an attorney, he lives in New Jersey, my mother's brother. And so we contacted him at the time. He put us in touch with exactly what to do. And just don't go and take, I guess, your random urinalysis style drug test. He said, you go back and take a hair follicle examination. He said, because then it can date back for a number of years. I can't remember the exact number of years.
It goes back as far as that hair, yeah.
But you have to understand how many of clients can't afford that $50 test. That's why I think it's the perfect time to talk about the new Harris County Public Defender's Office. For the first time, everyone knows in the last year, we have a Public Defender's Office, and I'm proud I'm one of the first felony attorneys with the Public Defender's Office. But the bottom line is, indigent people in Harris County have always been on the opposite side, not being able to have the resources to be able to take a simple drug test or to be able to take a polygraph test or be able to have an expert that can look at the evidence that would say that they likely didn't commit this offense. And for the first time, we're able to do that in Harris County, and we're already seeing a major difference.
Wow.
Major difference already in the, it's been since October that the felony division has happened.
Y'all doing a great job. Now they have the resources in the Public Defender's Office, like Attorney Barner said. They have investigators, they have secretaries, they have mitigation experts. I mean, they have a staff of people. Unfortunately, you can't request them. The court has to appoint them, and they're appointed they're in a wheel, and they're supposed to be appointed just like any other court-appointed lawyer. But if you're lucky enough to get one of the new public defenders, and I'm not downgrading anybody else, but if you're lucky enough to get one, be proud you have it, and you have to own up to your responsibilities too. Let me let Israel talk a little bit about his first case when he was 17.
That right there just took most of my life, you know. I ran across.
You were falsely accused of burglary of a habitation.
I wasn't just falsely accused. I was intentionally lied against. You know,
Okay.
it's a big difference. You know.
So you were charged with burglary of a habitation.
Yeah. First, I was arrested for a misdemeanor crime, and I was held in the city jail. You know, and while I was being detained, that's whenever they I guess investigated a 24-hour hold, and said that I broke a window with a stick. And it all trickles from there, you know.
Okay, well, they said you broke a window in an apartment complex
yes, ma'am,
that you lived
in an apartment complex that I lived in.
Okay.
I wasn't even there. I was in school the day that happened.
You were in high school.
The thing is most of the time, usually most of the time when you're falsely accused of something you didn't do, it's a lie that begins, and you don't know, you're unaware of what the future holds because the lie continues. You know, it's like when people lie, they have to keep lying and lying to cover up the first lie, and so you're like completely oblivious towards what's going to happen in the future because the lie continues greater and greater and greater. You have to uproot the lie at the very beginning. You know.
Israel, do you mind if I stop you and take a call?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Oh. What happened? Okay. Sorry, the call disconnected.
It all starts with the lie. I mean, I think words are more powerful than anything in a court of law. And if we apply them words and the true meanings of them words, we'll get a long way, you know?
But bottom line, in your case, you were accused of breaking into this
I was accused of breaking into an apartment.
Now, who identified you?
No one identified me. What happened was while I was being detained in the back seat of a cop car for that lower offense, you know.
Breaking the window?
No, for a misdemeanor charge. It was
breaking the window, right?
No, it was a crime of a smaller status.
Okay.
While I was being detained.
You don't remember what it was?
It was a misdemeanor crime.
Okay.
And while I was being detained for that, that's whenever the manager to my apartments told the police something to where the police came and told me, oh, well, this guy said that you broke into an apartment 2 days previous.
I think it was for burglary of a motor vehicle.
Yeah, burglary of a motor vehicle. It was a burglary that took place on the car, a misdemeanor offense. You know, that's what I did when I was a kid. I was stupid. You know, I did stupid decisions when I was a child. I used to steal. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a family. I didn't have nothing, and that's where they took advantage of me. You know, because I didn't have money. I didn't have nobody to get me out of jail. And that's usually where it starts, you know?
So you broke into a car, they held you for that, and then it went from that to then accusing you of breaking into somebody's house.
Yeah, breaking into an apartment.
Which you didn't do.
Which I didn't do. Don't even know who did, you know? And I mean, I'm not saying I would tell, but I didn't know. I didn't know who to tell on, you know? And whenever I went to jail, I was accused of my probable cause was for breaking the window with a stick. And once I got that cleared, my attorney tells me, see, my attorney never read me the police report, you know. I was 17 years old. I didn't know how the system worked. I didn't know what it took to, you know, and I didn't know, you know, so they manipulated me.
Well, I would say back then we didn't get copies of the police reports.
No, but he was in jail, and his lawyer should have read that police report.
1999, you know, and
in 1999, she should have come to that window when he was in the holdover.
Yeah, she did come to the window the second time and told me, well, now they're saying that the cops
No, but she should have read you the whole police report.
Didn't.
That's what I'm saying. That's what she should have done.
And she told me, well, now the cops are saying that you said you did it. I was like, what? You know, like that right there is. But see, the thing was, I didn't know if I got on the stand and I said that I didn't say that, because that's like hearsay. You know, they're saying that I said something.
Yeah, but see, one of the things you're doing wrong, Israel, is that you want to be the lawyer. You just tell your story. I'm gonna just tell you, it's hearsay. That's a legal term you shouldn't be using. You should. Did you get on? You had a trial.
I had a trial.
Where it was 12 citizens that were selected that decide whether you did it or whether you didn't do it. And
exactly.
You said the maintenance man in your apartment complex, who was a Hispanic man,
yes,
who was undocumented.
Undocumented, and they told him if he didn't get on the stand and say that he saw me break a window, because he tried to say that he saw somebody else, and whenever he was about to say that, my attorney objected. My own attorney objected to that. That's how I tell you, when there's no getting out of injustice sometimes.
Hold on. Don't give this the commentary right now.
So straight up.
So when the Jose Gonzalez.
Yeah, Jose Gonzalez.
He tried to say that he saw someone else breaking in, but somehow
my attorney objected.
But did he ever say he saw you break in?
No. Well, at first he said, he said that at first, and then he was going to change the story because he didn't see me. You know, it's a white lie. They used a white lie to keep on with the process. And while he was about to change that lie right then and there on the stand, and my attorney objected. All
right, now after you were convicted and after you got, you ended up getting 10 years probation.
I ended up getting 10 years probation, and
hold on. So that would have been from the time you were 17 to 27, but then halfway through there, you violated the probation and you had to do 5 years in prison.
Yeah, what happened was that I appealed the probation sentence, but my judge, 185th, Susan Brown, told me that I had to go to boot camp, and so I was like, okay, well, when I appealed my sentence was suspended, and because I had to wait to go to boot camp, therefore I was in jail doing dead time. And I spent 2.5 years in the county at that time, you know, and then
you're supposed to have probation, but you spent 2.5 years in the county?
I had a probation sentence, but I spent 2.5 years in Harris County Jail.
That's crazy.
Fighting the probation sentence that I didn't want in the beginning, because I knew that if I got out at 18 years old that I would violate my probation within a year. You know what I mean? That's just common sense.
Let's try to move it on though. So then you stay in jail for 2.5 years, and then
I bond out on appeal, and then I end up losing my appeal. My appeal comes back, so I end up having to go to boot camp. I went to boot camp for 6 months, and then after that, I got out and on a 10-year probation status, and I stayed on there a year and a half. I enjoyed being free, but it just little by little, you know, it ate me up inside. You know, it ate me up. I couldn't see towards the future because of what was holding me back, and I did some stupid things, and I weighed my options, and I knew that if I go to TDC and I finish this, I'll get it out the way and I'll get my life on, you know, faster than I would if I was on the probation. So I managed to get myself violated and go to TDC for a charge that I didn't commit, you know, which was the main charge.
And I think you told us outside before we got on the air that you had spent 7.5 years on this case.
Well, I spent 7 years and 2 months of my life enduring through that process. And I barely just recently just got over it. You know, I mean, I have 2 kids and I have a job and everything since.
But have you registered to vote?
Well, I'm a registered voter, but I haven't voted. You know.
Okay. And why wouldn't you vote? Why wouldn't you vote and participate in the system that you are mature enough to know about it? You've been in it since you were 17 and you're 30.
I want to be a part of something bigger. You know, I really do. I'm tired of being a pawn.
Why don't you register to vote, and get involved with it? Get involved with the Hispanic community. I mean, young people like you, people in jail. I mean, why don't you get involved with people who and do something? If it doesn't change, Israel, we're getting too old.
Yes,
I'm 53. I can't keep the fight up. Miss Barnes not gonna tell her age, but she's not as old as I am. But we're not gonna we can't keep the fight up, baby. We need some young soldiers.
It's a little tiring.
We're tired. We need some young soldiers. You're 30 years old. We need some young soldiers. But I want the public to know Israel's done a good job. He's had the same job for 6 years. He enjoys his job.
My boss is a cool guy. He's watching.
His boss is a cool guy. He does construction and other things in that construction area. He's worked for the same guy in the same company. But just look at how difficult, how easy it is for you to get in trouble. You have anything you want to say about that, Ms. Barnum?
No, I think ultimately he understands the system. It's not a fair system. We're fighting it all the time. The most of all of that it's upsetting to me that you spent 2.5 years fighting it, just sitting in jail.
While he's supposed to be on probation.
While he's supposed to be on probation. And
a jury gave him probation, but yet he's sitting in jail for 2.5 years. That's crazy.
I'm in boot camp, right? And I had to write a letter of an apology for my stipulation of probation, which I did. I sent out a letter and I told the man.
And how can you write I'm sorry when you didn't do it?
Yeah, exactly. But check it out. I wrote a letter and I said, sir, you know, I'm sorry that, you know, you had to endure through this. I'm sorry that your stuff got stolen. You know, basic stuff. I didn't say that I did it because I didn't do it, you know. And next thing you know, I sent it in. I get a letter back from the judge saying that I have to take responsibility for my actions.
But you didn't do it, and you pled not guilty.
I pled not guilty.
No, but you should never have to take responsibility for something when you pled not guilty. You exercise your constitutional right to a trial.
Yeah, exactly. She violated my constitutional right.
You're appealing it, and he shouldn't have to do that. Let me take this call. We're seeking the truth tonight. Do you have a comment?
How you doing, Ms. King? Thank you for taking my call. I really admire this young man for holding his ground. I got into a situation with the police a couple of years back. Got charged with a minor possession charge. But I just want everyone to know that just because you get hit with a charge does not mean that you cannot bounce back from it. I went through the process of the judicial system. Was found guilty of possession. Everything that they gave me, my probation, my community service, my fees, the classes, all of it seemed to interfere with my job, but I had to take it on the chin for making the choice that I made. And I'm happy to say that through it all, because I charged it like a bull, when they gave me everything, I completed everything, paid all of my fees, and now I have all of that behind me.
That's
And
good.
I'm going on forward with my life.
Good for you.
With my
We're happy.
family.
Good for you.
And everything is great. But I just admire him for sticking to it and not giving in to the system, because so many people will get tired after being denied so much, thinking that they're not going to get out of their situation. So if there's anyone that's listening that's going through a process, just hold your guns, tell the truth, and if you did do it and made a bad choice, go ahead and stick it out and get it done, and get it behind you, and then keep moving forward.
That's a great thing, caller. That was that's great advice, and we're on your side. We're out here fighting every day, and we believe in second chances. People make mistakes. There's half of the population doesn't even get caught when they're doing the same things that you got caught doing, and they're working every day, and sometimes in executive offices. But I admire you for taking it like a man and bullying through it, like you said. And Ms. Barner, don't you want to tell them the same thing?
Exactly. And the difference is, too, something that you pointed out, that the system really is stacked, that people have to weigh their options. You know, Israel and you know, you took responsibility. Israel said, I'm standing my ground, I didn't do this, and I'm going to fight in the system. But the system sometimes is designed, and they purposefully know that you're going to get worn out. The fight is hard, and there are a lot of situations where people are charged with minor things, and a lot of times the cops feel like, oh, he'll just go spend a few. I had someone say to me, the cop said, oh, well, you'll just go and you'll be out in a few days.
But you know, the thing that's wrong with that, and what bothers me, is that it's okay if you're saying that to a black kid or Hispanic kid. You're not saying that to a white kid, because their life matters more. And don't get me wrong, I have great friends that are white. I'm not racist at all. I value their lives just like I value Israel's life, and just like I value Ms. Barner's life and mine. But it's easy to say that when you're talking about somebody that doesn't look like you. Right. When you don't hear that often when you're talking about people that look like you, and that's why we need people to participate in the system and in the process, and why we want to educate people. Israel has had about 6 little cases as his. He took responsibility for them, but he's had 2 that weren't, and so he's had a lot of little misdemeanors. He's had a lot of little possession of marijuana cases, possession of drugs. I mean, he's done things. I mean, and we've all done things. I mean, by the grace of God, when I was a teenager, I didn't get caught. You know, people do things. People think.
Be in your spot, and we need you in your spot.
Yeah, I mean, people do things. I grew up in a different time in San Antonio. If kids did something wrong, and I was never one of these kids that had a joint in my car, but I knew of friends who did, and they threw it away. And back in the 70s, marijuana was a felony. They threw it away. They only went after the bad kids. They didn't just arrest everybody. I mean, we didn't grow up in an environment that was this mean. Houston is a zero tolerance.
Zero tolerance has gotten out of hand.
It's out of control.
I think Vivian and I both represented how many 17-year-olds that I've represented for fighting at school. That's now gets you arrested and you're thrown in county jail for fighting on the school ground.
And you're 17, you're an adult, and you're not an adult because you're living at home with your parents. Caller, thanks. We're going to keep talking, and please watch us next Wednesday. Thank you for giving Israel that support. He's sitting here smiling. He's happy because he got a long way to go on this case. It's just started, so he's still going to court.
Let me interject one more thing.
Yes, sir.
For the youngsters that are watching, when you're going down to see your probation officers and everything, this was one of the things that I really took pride in. My probation officer never saw me without a shirt and tie. I always went in and I was clean cut, fresh. And too many of them still want to go in looking like they do off the street. Well, you're not giving anybody an opportunity to see you in a different light if you're still going in the same way that you say that you didn't do this. So take some pride in yourself. Get yourself cleaned up, keep your hair and your nails done, and go looking professional. Even if you did make the mistake, show that you're trying to make an effort for change. I appreciate y'all taking my call. God bless you all. Thank you.
God bless you, too.
Thank you so much.
That was a great comment from the callers, because a lot of them go with their pants hanging down, T-shirts on, and the caller made a very, very good point, don't you think?
Very good point. And I think that how many times that we are walking through the courthouse hallways and we're thinking, did you really show up?
Looking like that? I tell my clients, look, go like you're going to church, but you got to be careful saying that, because some people go to church with orange suits on. Yeah. So you do have to, orange zoot suit. So you do have to sometimes say, you know, I have to tell my clients wear dark pants, and a white shirt. Now, I don't make them wear a tie, but I just tell them, you know, wear a collar. Make sure your pants are not hanging down, in a belt, because a lot of people don't wear have ties anymore. And I even have gone, if I had to go to trial with someone in jail, to the Salvation Army, which is right down the street from the courthouse on Franklin, and bought clothes. We've all done that. I mean, I've bought clothes for people, because you can buy a whole outfit for about $15. I mean, they have all size black pants, dark pants, white suit. I mean, white shirts. Ties, socks, shoes. So it's not that big a deal. I know a lot of young people do not have conservative clothes, but you can go after court. You can run down to the Salvation Army, and for $20, you can buy a whole outfit you can wear to court. And aren't you proud of the way Israel looks tonight? Look how he's looking. He works in construction, but he's looking all nice tonight.
Well, I think the point the caller made that ultimately the probation officer can be on your side. Mm-hmm. And when you go in there and you happen to be on probation and you're kind and you're polite and you treat them with respect, that goes a long way.
Sure
that
does.
Probation officer has a lot of clout, even when you do. And sometimes I've had clients that haven't been perfect, and the probation officer was doing their job and notifying the court, but they always get to make a recommendation. They always get to say, think this person should remain on probation, or we use the term a little jail therapy, which means 3 days in jail.
We have 1 minute. We have to wrap this up. This has been a fast and good show. Let me let Ms. Barner say something. Let me start with Israel. Israel, say something to, and then I'm going to let you say something, and we'll shut it down.
I just want to thank y'all, and all y'all out there, pursue justice swiftly, you know, because injustice is a lot more faster and it'll find you first.
Oh, that's a good comment. What do you have to say, Ms. Barner?
Understand that there are innocent people out there, and there are innocent people that have a right to have a voice, and that there are many of us attorneys that are out there fighting for injustice. And for those people that are the citizens, we need you there in that courthouse. We need you to show up for jury duty. We need you to understand that everybody deserves a second chance.
I'm going to wrap it up by saying thank you to my guest, Israel. Thank you for being unafraid to tell your story. Thank you for sharing your story with us. We're rooting for you. I'm going to be there rooting for you. I think Ms. Barner will be too.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Barner, for giving up your Wednesday afternoon workout to come talk tonight, to co-host with me. Thank you for watching. I hope you've learned something tonight. I hope we've shared something with you that you can use in the future, and that you continue to participate in the process and tell us the truth, and we will keep seeking justice downtown. Thank you so much for your attention tonight, and we'll see you next Wednesday night from 6:30 to 7:30.